My name is Marty Otanias. Welcome to another episode number 10 of Getting High on Anthropology. We got two guests tonight, Susan Squibb, the Cannabis Maven, and also Phil Wolf with Cultivating Spirits. You can find us on the internet, www.fsngreen.org, and also on Twitter, hashtag Getting High on Anthropology. I thought before we begin with Susan, I just want to explain two things about the show. Number one, why Getting High on Anthropology. In my day job, I'm an associate professor of cultural anthropology at UC Denver, and I'm interested in cannabis culture. I'm interested in understanding how to not only document it and analyze it, but also create it. So I'm using my position as a researcher, as someone who's very interested to see the cannabis sector be fair and transparent, but also really innovative, applying anthropological concepts and different approaches. And I wanted to also promote citizen journalism, community media. And so I have this show, again, episode number 10. And if anything, I encourage viewers to check out denveropenmedia.org, which is where the show is based. There's regular classes, video editing classes, production, studio classes on Adobe Premiere and digital storytelling. So I encourage you, if you are interested in making your own media or even having your own show, check out denveropenmedia.org. It's changed my life because of the vision of putting power of the media in the hands of community members. And it's at 700 Calumet Street in Denver. The cross street is 7th Avenue. So tonight, big round of applause for Susan Squibb. Welcome.
Thanks, Marty. It's good to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And Susan, I'm very fortunate. She's been featured on the show Getting High on Anthropology in episode 7. So if you go to the website, fsngreen.org, and look under shows, you can see episode 7 with Susan. So we want to make sure we build off of previous conversations. So maybe just for viewers to understand, what's an ordinary day like for a cannabis maven, or specifically you?
Oh, there could be many things. Right now, I'm doing a lot of consulting, and so it changes from day to day. A backbone of what I do is writing for the Cannabis as a freelance writer, and so that's a constant. Today, for example, I was up at Alfalfa's independent health food store in Boulder and Louisville, and I was doing a demo for a CBD extract company. So they're creating a new CBD category. The marketing company that I work for, Solana Marketing, is creating the CBD category in health food stores. And so this is revolutionary. It's amazing. Now there's CBD products. You can go into a health food store, and I'm so excited about it because it's creating the wellness category that I feel will be bigger than marijuana.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. So if this does work out and you find these kinds of things in stores, what would it mean for consumers? Like just greater access?
Yeah, greater access, and I think that it should be something like a vitamin or a tincture, something that someone takes in the morning. There's no concern about being high or feeling stoned or being foggy. It's like they get a lot of the wellness benefits that are in cannabinoids, but they don't have to go to a dispensary.
Got it. No, that sounds really fun. Did you enjoy it, like what you did today?
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. The conversations with people is just fantastic. There are people that have heard about CBD, whether it's through Charlotte's Web and the story of the children with Dravet syndrome and the severe seizure disorders, and they're curious because they're it's sort of like, whoa, it's in the health food store, and this is amazing. And people have certain concerns or issues, and like, will this help, or how can I apply this, or what is the serving size? And what do you recommend? And it's amazing.
Yeah, what I love about talking with you, you have this wealth of knowledge. So for people who want to do things like you, or if they want to be informed, what do you recommend in terms of sources for information? Like, where do you get the information? Like, how do you know all this stuff?
Well, I read Cannabis, like everyone should, and but also Marijuana Business Daily is a really good source of information. And I just, my moniker as Cannabis Maven is the accrual of knowledge and information in my network over the past 20 years. So
okay, so you're pretty dialed into the communities in Colorado that focus on cannabis. So a lot of the conversation we've had in the past, you you mentioned the Denver metro area, Boulder. Do you have anything going on outside of this area? Because with my work, I tend to be Denver centric, but I'm just curious if you have anything going on, or do you wish you could have something going on outside of these areas?
Oh yeah, I would love to travel, and I'm sort of cultivating opportunities where I would go to other places. I kind of have my eyes set on Chicago, Seattle, or Bay Area.
For work or to live?
Okay. Both, yeah. For either short-term projects or moving. Yeah.
Okay, so you heard it here. She's interested to go to the different places. So I know from being friends with you on Facebook and Twitter that you have a presence on social media. So I'm just curious, how many minutes a day are you using social media for cannabis-related purposes?
It's very much integrated into just my identity in social media. And so, I mean, there's the private, I do have a private life, but I don't always post things. But I do go to a lot of concerts and shows, so I like to like to post about that. But really, it's almost all of my time.
Okay.
Because when I find something interesting, I want to share it with people. If it's an article that shares a particular perspective that I think, because I feel that sort of that role of anthropology and what I've learned with my degree is sort of connecting information and people, and what do people need to know in order to feel comfortable with marijuana and mainstreaming. And so it's like, what are the issues that people are grappling with as this regulated industry is being created in Colorado?
I totally appreciate you sharing that, especially the anthropology, because we're sort of kindred spirits there. I'm a professor of anthropology. You're also sort of an expert in anthropology in the sense that you have some training. You did
a bachelor's
degree. Why don't you tell us
degree.
about the anthro background, and tell us, does the anthropology training and lens, does it help in any way, like with the work you're doing, and if so, how?
I think so. It does, especially with the writing for the column, Ask the Cannabis. That there's all kinds of questions that come in from readers wanting to know about, just whatever they need to know. And so I really look at what would be the most helpful for the largest part of the population. So there's some kinds of questions like business questions that I don't answer very often, but the kinds of questions that really a lot of people want to know. There's a lot of at-home baking questions. People really want to know how to properly dose things at home when they're making their own edibles, and a lot of employment drug testing questions, where people will have their I did this, it's been this long, I have this kind of test, am I going to pass? Like that's, there's all kinds of situations. So those are the biggest concerns that people have. But I really, use the social studies to say what do people really need to know, and what would be the most helpful.
Excellent.
At this point.
Yeah, this is important to me because as a social scientist, an ethnographer, a medical anthropologist, a visual anthropologist, I found it very frustrating when I entered the cannabis cultures area that much of the discussion focused on health. Health is extremely important, but I think social science, medical anthropology brings to the table a really interesting critique to try to understand what is it that sort of pulls people together, what is it that pulls people apart. So I would love to maybe see you, earn an honorary doctorate in anthropology with all the knowledge that you have.
Oh, that would be great.
So one thing to talk about is back to the social media. I want to make sure if people do want to get a hold of you, what would be some of your handles or ways that on social media people can find you?
Cannabis Maven on Twitter and on Instagram, and then I have a public page on Facebook that's Cannabis Maven.
Okay.
My website's cannabismaven.com, and what else? That's that. I'm on LinkedIn also, but that would be my name, Susan Squibb.
Excellent. So you have this extensive background in working in hemp cookies at Red Rocks. So for people who may be tuning in for the first time, who are unfamiliar with Denver and Colorado, but specifically Red Rocks, what is Red Rocks, and what is the meaning that place has for you today?
Red Rocks Amphitheater is the most beautiful venue in the whole world. And there are concerts there, concerts and movies, and it's one of the It's a beautiful place to see a show. There's no bad seat anywhere. And one of the great things about it is that it's a public park. And so people can access it. When there's not a show, people can be on the stage. And so you can see a show, and then you can go there in the daytime and you can be on the stage. You know, you're like, this is where my idol was, you know, and it's very energetic. And
how many shows would you say you've seen there?
I'm pushing 300.
Oh my gosh, wow.
It's so beautiful, and it's amazing. So like 200 of those shows was when I worked there selling hemp ice cream sandwiches. And so I had a contract with the city and county of Denver that I signed every year. So the consecutive years were 2004 to 2010. And so I put up a booth and managed a booth and a staff of vendors.
Wow, that's pretty revolutionary given the time period that you did it. And was there any, do you recall, like when you tried to jump through all the bureaucracy, like there was no major hoops to get through because it was hemp ice cream or without THC?
Right.
And so there's no, it was little to no bureaucracy or anything like that?
Well, it took some convincing, you know, and it was also that we realized that we were going to be scrutinized. And so it was important that we were always on our best behavior, and that the focus really was for vending. And it was, you know, I mean, certainly there were offers for people in the crowd to like, hey, you know, you want a puff on this, but it was like we were being watched, and so we had to keep it focused on business, and then
And so if I go there now, can I buy at a concert? Can I find the hemp ice cream?
No, it's not there anymore.
That's
it's
kind
not
of a
there.
bummer.
Yeah. My last year there was 2010.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so briefly, could you tell me, when you look at the landscape and all the social networks, what would be, or who would be one or two of the role models, like in the past, that have had some influence on you, or you look to like, oh my God, I remember my time with him or her and how much it's influenced you, or any lessons learned?
There are so many people, you know, I've been involved for 20 years, and so my start was really the activist side, you know, and it was just a really fearful time in the nation. And so people like Ben Mazel, who is an attorney in Madison, Wisconsin, was really inspiring to me. He was more of a rabble rouser. You know, I'm more well behaved. I'm a Girl Scout, and so I wasn't as rebellious and as Ben. But he was very inspiring because it's like you live a fearless life during a very fearful time,
right.
And you're not afraid to speak out on behalf of something that you know needs to change.
So let me stop you there. We're running out of time, and a great way to end. So I'm going to thank you, and I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks,
and
Marty.
one more time, give people your website, how they can learn about Cannabis Maven.
CannabisMaven.com. Yep, or the Cannabis site. I'm at the resources, Ask the Cannabis, and also the High Society column.
All right, stay tuned. We have a short video for you to watch, and we have Phil Wolf with Cultivating Spirits.
My name is Beck Coop, and I am one of the co-founders of the world's first Cannabis Wedding Expo, and I'm also the owner of Buds and Blossoms. Today you walk in and the first thing you have is just your traditional check-in, yet there's a security guard checking your ID, and that's because we needed everybody to be 21 and up. And from there we decided that we were going to allow consumption on site, so we had everybody on a private list attend our world's first Cannabis Wedding Expo. What we did as a result was you came around the corner and you started to get to see the vendors, everything from your traditional photographers, caterers, hair and makeup girls. Then there was a bud tending service, and you could see jars of weed, edibles, drinks, different ways that you can incorporate cannabis into your wedding day.
What we did here at the expo is providing a platform for bride and groom to come together with cannabis companies, whether they're 420 friendly or they actually have these niche cannabis products that they will market to different weddings and couples. And so, we explain that we're providing this platform, but then we also talk about kind of, how we're gonna have a cannabis consumption lounge and really try to open people's eyes to being able to incorporate cannabis into their events and make it feel okay.
This couple would have decided to go with the sativa cannabis here so that they could have that upbeat, amped up, fun energy level that they're looking for on their wedding day. They're not looking to totally get zonked out, or maybe you hide a couple indicas in there as well sometimes. But you have your traditional floral bouquet, and then you add in the nugs, making it a smokable arrangement, or buds and bouquets, as I like to say. For the fellas, you also have a boutonniere rather than a boutonniere, which gives you the opportunity for the fellows to even have wearable, smokable flower artistic design on yourself. And so it's just fun. You can even do them in arrangements on the table, different areas all over your event. So you can be as loud and proud in your face, or you can have even more subtle touches so that it's not offending anybody. But to the average person, you might not even notice that until you start to look in or smell and you realize there's something sweet in there.
People are realizing that this is a choice now. You know, people are realizing, hey, wow, I can do this. I can actually have cannabis incorporated in my wedding, from a massive amount, from doing bouquets with, cannabis in it like this, or, a bride who wants to smoke a joint while they're getting ready and feeling comfortable about the makeup artist that's sitting with them, know that she's okay with it. To also being a liaison between the dispensaries, and getting the product and showing how you can do these legally as well in the state of Colorado. And so, it's really important that people realize that they have these types of choices now. And so hopefully other states and other countries can also look at this and say, hey, wow, this is okay. They're doing it the right way. This is great. This is wonderful. Everyone appreciates it. I mean, I don't think there's a person who would have walked in the door today that wouldn't have been appreciative of what we were doing. I don't think it was offensive. I think people really would have enjoyed it regardless of the walk of life they came from.
The biggest thing right off the rip is the venue, and making sure that your venue is willing to accommodate a cannabis wedding. You have to have a privately owned space that is on private property, and the landlords have to approve the type of event in the smoking areas, whether they're inside or outside, but just having cannabis consumption on their property has to be approved. Most circumstances, we prefer that all of the events are 21 and up, so you don't ever have the chance of Uncle Sam giving little Johnny a little puff pass. And so it's always better that people are just taking responsibility, but also educating them about edibles. There's many different things that you can talk to people about in incorporating cannabis into their wedding day. This went from a kind of a joking conversation to reality today, and we made history, so that's really exciting.
It's a passion to spread this word of cannabis because it's given so much to my life. And I realize where we're at in Colorado that we have this opportunity to show the world of what we're doing here and how we can do it a responsible way, in a way that can fit lifestyle, fit people's medical needs, spirituality. Hopefully other people in other states can say, make it go to the voting poll and see something like this and vote yes, pro-cannabis, as opposed to no, because they see that it's working.
Welcome back. I'm Marty Otanias with Getting High on Anthropology. You can find us at fsngreen.org or hashtag Getting High on Anthropology. Phil Wolf is with us tonight from Cultivating Spirits. Phil, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Why don't you show or share with us, what did people just watch? Because I met you in January. You were very kind enough, you and Beck, to invite me to an event. So why don't you share with viewers, what was that event?
Yeah, so that was the Cannabis Wedding Expo, and those people watching live right now just saw the clip that played. And that was something that Beck Coop and I put together. She owns Cannabis Concierge Events, and I own Cultivating Spirits, and so those were the two companies really putting this together. But what we wanted to do was Beck had actually gotten denied doing wedding expos, and Beck and I are good friends. She actually attended my first tour just over 2 years ago. And High Country Healing, I have really close relationships with, and she used to work there before she moved down to Denver and with Buds and Blossoms and really going after that. And so, whenever that happened, we're like, well, screw this. Let's start our own, wedding expo.
It was such a great event, too.
Yeah, and that was about 18, maybe even 18 months ago, I'd say that happened. And then, last September, we decided to pull the trigger, and we had it in January, and that's where we met before, and it was an amazing event.
That's
we had 40 vendors, 300 people sold out on both of it, and really, I think, showed people a different way to look at cannabis and how you can incorporate those in your events in a very sophisticated way, very educational way, and classy. And what a lot of people don't realize is you can incorporate cannabis in an event as simple or as much as possible, and it doesn't have to be the High Times Cannabis Cup just to incorporate cannabis into an event.
No, in that sense, I'm so glad you're here to talk about that and talk about, like, for instance, I think people would love to know, take us back a couple years. Was there one moment in your life where you realized that I'm going to cross that line and get into creating Cultivating Spirits, or like, was there any compelling memory you have that you can share?
Yeah, well, the seed, I can tell you exactly when the seed was planted. I remember it very vividly. I come from a growing background. I opened a dispensary in 2009 and did cannabis grow consulting all around the state for many years. And I got involved with some Wall Street investors about 3 years ago, working on ancillary businesses, one of those being tourism. And it was a little generic, and we kind of copied some other brands out there, like My 420 Tours, and just try to make it more of a luxurious experience. But I saw that it was lacking a lot of education, and we were lacking opportunity to really show mainstream America, how you can appreciate this plant from a lifestyle point of view.
Excellent.
You're talking about things from the medical point of view, which is very, very important, because that is helping so many people across the world, cannabis, and using it in medical applications. But the lifestyle application, I thought there was a gap there. And so I was actually at a wine tasting in Barcelona about 10 days before January 1st, 2014, and all the rec shops opened, and I'd been working on tourism. And at that wine tasting, that is where I was like, this is what the cannabis industry needs.
Oh, great.
Is right here. And I actually walked away 45 days later. I left all the equity in the companies that I had started because I would have to sign a non-compete, just because I believe so much in what we were doing with Cultivating Spirits.
Yeah, and I think what's so important, what you mentioned, is the education.
Yeah.
And so one thing, maybe to take that thought further, what one or two things would you encourage viewers to think about in terms of, like, ethical pot tourism? Like, is there one or two things, like behaviors or things to consider, or because I'm sure you've seen people do it incorrectly or could have done it better.
One thing is, as far as the ethical side of businesses running, follow the laws. There are some gray areas and some ticky-tack laws that we don't necessarily feel like should be in place, but let us work those throughout, through legislation, and work that out opposed to try to break them. Because right now there's so many other government eyes on Colorado and our industry, and paying attention to what we're doing. And so if there's people out there, doing it the wrong way, then that's going to make it harder for it to get legalized in their potential states.
Right.
And so that's something that's really important. And then also how you promote the consumption of cannabis. So many people like to just promote overconsumption and mass consumption of it, but there's a lot more to it, and you can be very mindful when you consume cannabis if you consume comfortably, in smaller amounts. And so that's something that I think is very important, because then from a lifestyle standpoint, you can utilize the plant a lot better, because how we talk a lot about with terpenes with our cannabis pairings, we talk about being able to smoke with intention depending on what you're going to do, and that involves just small amounts of cannabis. If you overconsume anything, it's going to kind of make you lackadaisical and tired.
Exactly.
And everything.
So at the moment you're running these tours? Is that part of
Yeah. I mean, we're running our food, wine, and cannabis tours every Saturday night up in Summit County, so Breckenridge, Keystone, Copper area.
Okay, so give people, like, if someone signed up, just kind of quickly run us through what do they see, what do they experience, what do they hear and smell?
Well, it's just a lot of fun. You're just going to have to come on it and see it.
Okay.
I mean, as far as we get all your six senses involved. So what you learn, what you see, what you smell, what you taste is it's awesome.
Oh,
we really get your senses excited. But then, what we do is you show up at the Cultivating Spirits Eatery in Silverthorne. We take you through a cannabis pairing demonstration on how we pair the terpene profiles of cannabis with flavor profiles of food for harmonization. Try to teach you to become a cannabis connoisseur. And then we go through a cooking demonstration from an executive chef, so you're watching the food getting made and smelling it. And then we take luxury transportation over to the dispensary, High Country Healing, and that's where we go through an exclusive dispensary experience and get more in-depth knowledge into the strain of the evening. And then we go through a cannabis tasting on the proper way to taste cannabis. and then head over to the Frisco Wine Merchant. We go through wine tastings with meats, cheeses, and chocolates, and new and old world wines.
No, I'm hooked.
And then you go back for a 3-course gourmet meal at the Cultivating Spirits Eatery that is prepared right in front of you.
Okay, so switching gears a bit, with all the things that you've just said, what 1 or 2 things would you share with students or researchers so they could be helpful to people like you, so they have the information, or they can promote positive stereotypes about, you know, pot tourism and the sort of craft tourism too? It's sort of higher end, is what you're telling me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's really hard from a research standpoint because there's not really too many companies out like mine on trying to be a more sophisticated experience that are out there. You know, you have Mason Jar Events with Kendall Norris, which isn't tours necessarily, but bigger cannabis pairing dinners, which we do as well. But, you know, outside of that, a lot of it is, you know, kind of event planners who are starting to come into the cannabis industry, but they're not dedicated to it, you know, and having that as their primary type of event. So the research is really difficult, but, you know, I think for us it is, you know, for me personally, it is really trying to figure out, you know, the numbers of people coming into Colorado for cannabis, how many people are actually consuming cannabis and everything.
Okay, demographics and...
Yeah, and which they did come out with an article a few months ago where they were saying like 48% of the people said that they came out here and a reason of that was cannabis, but they never really specified on that number how they got there, exactly what that number meant. So it's still kind of up in the air.
So we have a few minutes left. Just how can people get a hold of you? And either Facebook or a website?
Yeah, I mean, if you Google Cultivating Spirits, you know, everything will pop up, you know, right off the bat. But cultivatingspirits.com, Instagram, cultivating _ spirits, and then Facebook, you know, facebook.com/cultivating spirits. So
excellent. And so one word. What one word would you choose that sort of defines what you do?
One word that defines what I do. I don't know. That's really.
Well, we'll leave that.
Let's say love.
Okay, perfect.
Love is one thing. You know, I want to try to share this plant with everybody. You know, and through an advocacy point of view, and giving people more knowledge and everything like that. And
okay, thank you, Phil. And I'm sorry to cut you off. We're running out of time. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I'm Marty Otanius, Getting High on Anthropology. Have a great night.